Well, would you look at that? We are back for another episode. Hashtag randomly with Ronnie Jr. That is the hashtag I would like you to use for anything, but also use it for on YouTube. If you type in hashtag randomly with Ronnie Jr., it's going to basically connect all the podcasts that I've been doing since I established this podcast platform, maybe a podcast network, depending on how successful we get. And also, because I come from radio in 2003, obviously YouTube started in 2005, but in those olden days, in the dinosaur days of broadcast and radio and television, when I started in radio, we used to upload everything, interviews, all this stuff. But in those days, we used to just send those out to specific like program directors and casting directors. There wasn't this direct to consumer type situation, monetization that we have now. So I had this whole channel, like this whole other channel, had like 250 videos. I didn't bring them all back. Some of them are just like terrible. Just corny as all can be, you know, when I was starting out my career. But the point is, I made sure I did an overhaul and I put hashtag randomly with Ronnie Jr. on all of those and hashtag randomly with Ronnie Jr. on all the new stuff too. So now everything you could, if you go to the hashtag or type it in, you'll see, and it's at the bottom of my videos, you'll see like 500 different videos in different choices. You know, obviously I want you to be here with the podcast because this is the current stuff. I mean, today we're talking about Housewives, but I mean, we always are talking about Housewives. But I just like to have that offer for you to look at both of the channels because guess what? The work is done. I put in the work all those years ago. And rather than being frustrated that the landscape shifted, because back in those days, you were just trying to accumulate a lot of footage and then get those off to program directors and casting directors and agents and managers and stuff. And then they were to get you the big, you know, walk into the E channel and get a big opportunity. I mean, I've auditioned at the E channel before. And then everything switched to like, no, it's all about your self-producing, you know, whatever. And I was like, you mean after I worked for, you know, 7, 8 years of nonstop, 9 days a week of work, you know, type thing. I know there's only 7, but we work 9. Now you want me to start from scratch? Like, it just was like, no. So I transitioned to some other careers or whatever, mostly still in television production, but I was mad for a long time about it, or still probably am. Who cares? I say what I want. But I remember kind of like when I came back into the space, I was like, okay, you know, in a competitive way, everybody who's succeeding, they have a lot of content. And I was like, well, I got all this really great, fun content and it'll show you a different side of me or more of my old work too. My old work, more of the old work that I used to do when I was more bright-eyed and bushy-tailed in this industry. Now I've been in it for so long, like I'm a little like rigid or jaded or whatever, which is to be expected. But I like that about me. You know exactly what you get. Like for me, I'm always like 42 years old, been in this shit forever. Those are the types of things that people my age like to leave out because they're trying so hard to appease the young generation or whatever, or like, you know, I could give a shit. That is not my focus. My focus is whatever our topic is today. It's what is our topic today? There was a while that I was doing a bunch of episodes a day, and then sometime in the summer, right before my birthday, there was like a little bit of a hiatus, and now I'm like not used to doing a bunch of episodes a day. Like I'm literally like, okay, this is my 5th one. They're all about 40 minutes each. I used to do that with my eyes closed. I come from radio. We would do that on the daily. But I'm telling you, today I'm exhausted. But what are we talking about? We're talking about what is happening with the Real Housewives of New York. I hope I spelled everything correctly. Did not get a big chance to check it out, check my work. But I think it looks beautiful. So, first of all, my first viewpoint of the Real Housewives of New York is this. Let season 13 be your, you know, unlucky season. The season 13, the number 13 is billed as unlucky. Luck be a lady tonight. Like, just call it and just get back with another season. This waiting forever is the dumbest thing that anybody could be doing over there at Bravo. Who's making these errors? And the decisions between splitting between this and between that, just give something. You got to put it back on the air. The longer you wait, you've got people wondering. I mean, let's suppose, and I am an Ebony K. Williams fan for sure, from the show specifically. I knew her work from before for sure, but I didn't know necessarily how she would work onto the show. I had already watched her on State of the Culture. I'd watched her on Black Hollywood Live. I'd seen her on her Breakfast Club interviews when she was promoting her book, pretty what was it called? Pretty young thing. I don't know. So I was already familiar with her, and I think contrary to what people wanted to make it as if she was the reason the show didn't do well season 13. Are you kidding me? They couldn't do New York City stuff. That's number one, because of, having a national, March 2020, it was when the world flipped upside down. And so they were limited. But to make it like it was all because she was, causing, what was she causing? She wasn't causing any issue. The reaction from some of the other ladies, that might be the issue at hand, or that is the issue at hand. But even so, they should have had a reunion. Dumbest thing Bravo has ever done. It's funny, I just said they did two dumb things. The dumbest thing Bravo has ever done, and I'll tell you why. If you could not get everyone together, you get who you can. If there's an element of you're trying to cover and protect a specific cast member for their asinine comments and actions, I'll even give you this. Do a one-off, or add. So I watched the Love and Hip Hop, and one time Erica Mena didn't really want to mesh with the other girls because she was above them, because Erica Mena is the queen. And on Love and Hip Hop, she said, no, I'm not going to, just be amongst the swill. And so she didn't want to be amongst the swill. And she had the executive producer, Mona Scott Young, interview her. She was the most gorgeous you've ever seen her. And she was having her own interview moment, but they just spliced it into the show. Now, that's a little bit different of a case, because I don't want, I guess Ramona would be the trouble child here. Not that Erica Mena was. It was a whole different situation. But I necessarily don't want the person to have like an uplifted experience, but do something where she could be accountable. And you could still cover it as a network, like in terms of the network. If they're like, oh, we don't want to do anything with Ramona based on all these things she said, let's just like act like it didn't happen. You still should have done something. And you as the network, it's not like you're doing a live stream. We're doing a live stream right now. You're not doing a live stream that you couldn't protect any of the comments. You could, when I worked as a podcast producer for Revolver Podcast, and we did a show for VH1, and I'd be up at VH1 producing that for about a year. One of my duties of the job was to always get the full episode, and then we would send it off to all, this huge distribution list, and everyone that was on that, from different showrunners from some of the shows that we were covering, et cetera, they'd all come back with their notes. They could have done that with, in terms of like if Ramona wasn't playing easy into to do the reunion. And I don't know what the thing was. I don't know if it was that accusation. I don't know if it was the investigation. I don't know what it was. But take who you have. If somebody is just blatantly not wanting to do it, they should have just done a reunion. And then furthermore, I mean, I can't speak for anybody, but I'm pretty sure like Ebony K. Williams would have done whatever. She would have done a reunion. She would have done, again, can't speak for her. She would have done a special, do something. I mean, at the time, Bravo was airing all these specials. So why not like take the negative, really awful stuff that was contributed on that season and like let the other people have their say so? And especially if you have to let the other people say their say so, they're not necessarily saying it in a way that it's like it becomes like another back and forth. It's just basically, this is how I felt based on these actions. So anyways, that's the first part of it. I hope that made sense. I'm just saying, I don't even think a non-reunion was the smartest move. And then you want to go even further and say, oh, let's just give it a we're going to put the show on pause. That's like the dumbest thing you could do. Get right back out there. I mean, if you're a little leaguer, okay, you're playing shortstop, you miss a ground ball, you don't have the affordability to not like stay in the game. Stay in the game, Bravo. You have to stay in the game. Obviously I'm making great points, and but this is what would have been suffice for the show. That way you get to hear either side. Like even if Ramona is pond scum, I'm not trying to be mean, but at least she can still say her side. If you feel like you don't want her in a reunion because it's going to go away, then just do a separate interview with her. If you feel, and I would hate for this to happen, but if you feel like Ebony was the an issue, you can have her do an interview off to the side. Just make sure everyone gets paid, they enjoy their reunion experience, and they get put a button on it. We have what, almost 2 years from when it happened, and there's no like closure to it all. Like now it still feels nasty. In fact, in my head, I'm like, who's coming back? Which is why I'm going to do a couple of my casting choices today. And another reason is there's been a lot of word on the curb that like they're shooting and they're doing test shoots and it's not going well or whatever the case. Some of that I feel like is a little bit like glorified, and sometimes you will do test shoots. There's many a times where somebody was going to come onto a show, but it just didn't work out, be it the network, be it the talent, be it whatever. So there's a lot of like chatter, huckleberry about like Andy Cohen being upset, which I don't know unless I hear him saying it on his like Sirius XM show. I don't know specifically, but like, oh, Andy Cohen is so frustrated because they are supposed to make a big announcement at Bravo. They're supposed to make a big announcement at BravoCon about Housewives of New York. There's a part of me that thinks that's actually that rumor and its legitimacy is maybe more to draw up interest. In my opinion, they probably already have a really good nucleus of what they want to do, be it the regular reboot or the Legends season or whatever they're going to call it. They might just be, maybe Bravo's dipping into that rumor, like leaning in and saying, yeah, all that. We're so scattered, because it gets the chatter going amongst the Twitter and here on the YouTube. And it's just, it draws interest, But anyways, since it did draw interest, because I'm not going to say how legitimate that is, I think if you're making these big decisions and you've already taken a year, 2 years to get a new show out and you didn't even do a reunion, you're not going to be as loose-lipped where suddenly somebody, and I don't know where the rumor necessarily began, credit to that person for sure. I'm not leaving anyone out. I just don't know where, but also how do we know? How would that person know? You know what I mean? Like, it's always somebody, from I don't know where, just saying something, and then it's like the rumor. But let's suppose that it is, like what is happening with Real Housewives of New York City. What is happening, and is there an urgency to get it tightened up before the BravoCon? They could announce the announcement whenever, but obviously BravoCon is a really good place. What I'm going to do is just give some names without the context of a reboot or a legacy season. I'm just going to say who I would like to see on the show. I think it would be just not a good look to not bring Ebony back. She has done so much. She literally has been the embodiment of her tagline. I have had to work twice as hard to get half as much. And when I say that, I mean that. Like, how are you going to be the only housewife in history who never got a reunion? Like that was in the tagline. She was saying, why do I always have to do so much to get such little? And it is little respect. And I personally like Ebony. I've done a couple episodes already. Ebony has, of course, watched and or listened to other podcasts that I've stated. A lot of this is regurgitated information because I've always been like, no, she was solid. But I especially like Ebony because Ebony is doing a show holding court, but they moved to the other production company, which was with one of the agents. One of the agencies has a department within the podcasting space, and her co-host is just such a handsome guy. My gosh, Dustin Ross is really the star. I mean, Bravo should be investing in a show with Dustin Ross, and they peel back the layers on like his friend circle. I mean, that's the problem with Bravo. We're not doing anything original. You got somebody like Ebony who is running with Dustin Ross. Dustin Ross famously was in the Skinny with Jussie Smollett. There's the underwear scene. I mean, it's a good scene, I will tell you. Why aren't we starting something new? It's like, oh, these housewives is like the only way to do a show now. Start something new. It had if I was in charge, you'd be seeing Dustin Ross on the television. But anyways, I think Ebony's great. I think she really, again, from knowing of her work prior, from knowing how well she stepped into State of the Culture, which was a Revolt TV show she did with Joe Budden. I'm a huge Joe Budden fan in terms of his podcast and his music, of course. But the way she stepped in to the position, Remy Ma was also on the panel and just lit it up. And it was a position that people kind of were like, is this the right position for you? And see, that's what Ebony's been doing, and which I appreciate. She keeps doing her career the way she wants to do. She keeps stepping into positions that otherwise people would say, why are you doing that? And I just think it's great. And she did have a good season. Really, to me, Real World. Why am I saying the Real World? I must be thinking of Melissa Beck Howard from Real World New Orleans, who lives in Long Island, who should be on the Real Housewives, but I don't know if she wants all of that drama in her life. And that's the problem with casting really great people. If you want to cast somebody good who has a career to protect or family to protect, you're not going to get the best people because they see the way this show, really causes some toxic energy. And that's why you get people like Leah, who is what I would say. People made it like Leah was so great the first season, and then she suddenly got the bad edit. Leah was unentertaining the first season. Unentertaining. The only thing she did was offer difference. Like, she just was not the Upper East Sider. That was it. That was the only thing she did. Actually, the only thing that she did that I liked was I thought her mother Bunny was actually the most compelling. And yet we kept getting her sister and her brother. Bring back Bunny, leave Leah, move on. But Ebony is somebody who I would put on the show. And again, I'm not doing a who would go on the regular show, who would go on the Legacy. I'm just saying people I want to see. And for the record, I'm not necessarily going to go over all of the heavy hitters. Like, of course, I would want Bethany there. Of course, I would want Dorinda there. Of course, I would want Jill Zarin there. And in fact, I think they should be looking to cast a similar version of Jill Zarin, even if they need to cast younger, because Lord knows that Bravo always wants to cast young. I disagree. Give me 56 and above all the time. I mean, I'm good with it, And if you are 30, make it work, what about, did the Gastineau girls, are they in New York City again? I mean, they're so rich, they're always back and forth. Feels like the Gastineau girls would be good for this. That way you have a mother-daughter situation and not a mother-daughter situation like Tinsley and Dale. I like Dale, didn't like Tinsley. Anyways, moving on. These are just people that I'm saying, these are new people that I'm adding to the fold as far as like who should be casted. And again, if nobody takes my advice, that's fine. But these are people I'm thinking should be casted on some level. You don't have to put everything in Housewives. Even, and I've said this before, and this would be an opinion of Ebony herself, who's to say Ebony wants to come back on this show? Meaning, I almost feel Bravo should be like, we got to do you a solid. Let's create something new, some blood, sweat, and heels type thing up in Harlem. I lived there for 4 years, so I'm very familiar with all of the establishments that Ebony was showing them. The Harlem candle maker, I have some of those candles from when I used to go to one of the little marketplaces, while living there for about 4 years. So create something new and create it around Ebony and let her, sort of at that time, she would have to sink or swim, which I think she would swim. I mean, because she always seems to do so. But I mean, kind of hard to leave, when you do a show this big, you want to redeem all the success from it. And quite frankly, she's the only one who hasn't got to redeem that success. I mean, she has because she is loved, but she's also talked bad about too, which really sucks. And she didn't get the reunion. She didn't get the momentum to catapult her career to the next level, which she'll do anyway. But it's just, again, why does her tagline become so truthful? It's like literally she called it. She said, I'm going to do more than anyone else and I'm going to get less than everyone. I mean, she literally called it. So my love for Ebony on this show, at least that season. I don't know if she comes back, what changes. If I were her, I'd have Dustin Ross in every one of her scenes. But that is just me. Ooh. Okay, let me get my head in the game. I'm over here thinking about Dustin Ross. Let's think about the Housewives because that is what it's all about. Okay, so other people that I think should be incorporated into a version of the show, because again, it's all this nonsense about like, what is happening to the Real Housewives of New York. Andy's not happy with the footage, and oh my gosh, BravoCon. We don't know if any of that's true. I'm just talking about it because it's being talked about. But beyond that, I wanted to take the time, and I've already sort of done it on other episodes, but I wanted to reiterate and add a couple people who I think these are the people we should be bringing in the show. Bringing in the Leah types and the Julia Foxes. No, we need to elevate the show. Ironically, Leah said she elevated the show when she couldn't do the polarizing opposite more. I mean, she ruined the show. Leah ruined the show. And by the way, while we're at it, well, first thing I want to know, I want to know if Ebony's cool with Leah. That's number one. But number two, sorry, I'm losing my breath. I'm getting too excited. Let me drink the water. Before I give my Leah opinion. And she's not that bad. My opinion with Leah is she's that far off base who she is. The Leah I want to see is that whole give me downtown New York City, but like not just like today. Give me New York City stories. Give me the culture of New York City. New York City's been my favorite place ever. I mean, I'm a Californian, but the 7 years I've lived there, I eat it up. Like I love New York. So it should have been more about that. For some reason, I don't know, it just didn't fit. She just might not cut it. Anyways, what I was going to say, oh, it was so compelling. Did I forget it? What I was going to say is I'm wondering again, first, if Ebony is friendly with Leah, if Leah's friendly with Ebony. And sure enough, I forgot the second part about that. We'll see. You know, the universe is like, Ronnie, chill. Don't be so judgmental. Oh, the second part. Who in their right mind? I mean, it's crazy. You come on the show, and yes, she has her other businesses. I mean, that silly clothing line. And great, Rihanna wore something once. Wonderful. You're the epitome of culture and fashion. But streetwear, like I get it. I worked at Complex Media. I know what scene, she's speaking of. In fact, Laura Stiles, who was her old co-host on her old podcast, and Leah, I didn't know who Leah was at the time. They had a booth at one of the Complex cons years ago. So I've already known of Leah was, of course, on Love and Hip Hop. Leah was on, I mean, she's been, swinging the bat for years. Swing and a miss. No, but she seems like she could be so lovable. But she keeps playing this character. But anyway, give more like authentic New York City life, which I guess maybe doesn't fit on the Housewives. So maybe I can side with Leah for that. However, who in their right mind goes on a show, already has a podcast with Laura Stiles, who's a radio host and a very high tier radio host. Laura Stiles, of course, from Hot 97 Radio. And they have a podcast. It's working out. And then you get on Housewives and you ditch the podcast. No, when you come onto the show, you do what Ebony did or does or was trying to do. You stack everything up, And so Leah might be the silliest person ever to do the show where she says, oh no, I'm on the show now and people seem to like me the first season. I'm going to stop doing my show with Laura Stiles, somebody who's insanely talented. In fact, I would want, if Leah does have to come back, and I don't know the relationship there either, I would love to know. And I'm sure it's wonderful. I'm sure everyone is on the up and up. But what if it was an interesting fallout? We don't know. Laura Stiles doesn't seem like the argumentative person, but what if the fallout wasn't great? Like, dang, Leah, we've worked this hard on the podcast. Let's just stop right now. Or maybe Laura Stiles was doing Leah a favor. I don't know. Don't care. But let's suppose that Laura Stiles is frustrated. Cast Laura Stiles. She has a new home in Brooklyn. She's now married. She has 2 kids. She's the perfect person. She's Guatemalan. Bring Laura Stiles, who's been in this industry as a radio professional for all these years. And I'd love to see Laura Stiles on there. Laura Stiles, Ebony. I didn't pull a photo. That's just what naturally came into my brain right now. But that's not who I was going to bring up. But boy, you talk about Leah and her shortcomings. It makes me think, where's Laura Stiles and why are they not working together? And yeah, put Laura as a as an apple holder, and have Leah be in the background talking. I don't know, elevating this shit. She did quite the opposite. Okay, speaking of elevating, I've already mentioned this, so this is not like breaking the mold. I mean, who is not throwing the good check at Olivia Palermo? Fashionista, stoic as all can be, and quite frankly, dominated on 2 seasons of MTV's The City of that time frame. She's a little bit older. I don't know if she'd want to get into the weeds of a reality show anymore based on her life being so fabulous, but she throw the right money. make sure the contract's the right type of contract where, if it was me, I'd be like, I'll do the show if Leah doesn't do the show. I'm just kidding. But somebody of this elevated level, like an Olivia Palermo, to me would be a great additional choice for the show. But I've talked about her in other episodes, so it's not like I'm breaking the mold in any way. But that's who I would like to see. And again, as I said a second ago, I'm still factoring in, I want to see all the greats. Sonia, I want to see Luann, I want to see Bethany, I want to see Heather. And I'm not doing a legacy versus the reboot. I'm just stating who needs to be part of this, because we're waiting too long. Hold on, let me adjust this mic here. We're waiting too long, Bravo. Now you're going to make it like an impossible. You're going to give people reasons to, critique and say, I don't like it. What you're doing is you're trying to please everybody. Stop trying to please everyone. You see that with the shows now. They lose their host, like a co-host or whatever, and they have like 2 years or a year of just auditioning people. What's wrong with people doing what we used to do? It was called casting. You cast somebody, you sit behind it, you take ownership. That's who I'm going with, and you let them succeed. I don't know what all this we're going to give you just this little, and we're going to stop that. I don't like it. And what's even worse is when on, sometimes Andy Cohen's conversations with some of the housewives is very like, like we see Tamara going back to the OC, which is so funny because she was the least interesting in Dorinda's show. But okay, it's a lot of like groveling towards I want my job back, and I just for the nature of standing on your own 2 feet, I feel like Bravo Housewives is making everyone look really, really. I mean, ambitious is good, but we don't want people to feel desperate. And that's what happens. You create a culture of desperate, because if now you let the one person get back on the air who groveled to Andy, that means everyone else is going to want to do the same. I just wish it was a little bit more like treated differently, even the way he talks with them, but whatever. They all seem to be happy. He seems to be happy. And Andy Cohen does a good job. This is the wrong with it. Okay. So I have a wild card. I'll do after, but this is somebody who I think should actually definitely be looked at. And this one I think would be fantastic. Michaela Angela Davis also lives in Harlem, image consultant. She's been on tons of shows. Like she was on Big Mary Jane. And if you've lived in New York City uptown, like, of her, like, it's just like, and that's what we need. We need people that aren't necessarily celebrities, although I'd put her up there in the world of celebrity, but they're very not socialites, but social amongst the community. And so Michaela Angela Davis, I love that she's of a certain age. I love that she's not gonna, you go on these reality shows and they sort of put you in these positions where you have to, yell at someone else or whatever. I feel like she's got a good level of a wordsmith, and so seeing that would be it just would work, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Like you don't need to always cast people that are going to be loud like Leah, because that fell short. But you hire somebody with almost the like a higher cachet, like a Michaela Angela Davis, and now you got something going, So again, because I've lived uptown in Harlem for about 4 years, I know of her work, and I just think this would be a better new direction for the show. The show direction, though, I love a Sonia Morgan getting drunk. It was just really going downhill. I want the people, they always want to do big houses on all of the franchises because it's supposed to be, and the term is aspirational watching. But why aren't we doing aspirational watching with badass people? Like people that are just winning at life. Obviously like a Bevy Smith. She's never going to do this show because she keeps herself up here. And so we're losing out on all these really great people because we want Carolina Bermudez has been talked about quite a bit. She's from she's at KTU now. Radio talent out there in Long Island, comes into the city. She's the perfect castmate too. But you think she's gonna, with her regular job and her fabulous life, she's gonna frolic with the swill of this show? So my point is, let's not think of people who could be in that level and it could go toe to toe with Leah. Let's elevate the show. Let's bring it to a higher cachet. I had another photo and I don't seem to see it right here. The other cast member that I wanted to say before I do the wild card is Amber Sabathia, which is CC Sabathia's wife. CC Sabathia, a Yankee. So you've got the built-in like New York City love. I think they may live in Jersey though, but like you could still make it work, right? Amber Sabathia, good friends with Angie Martinez from radio. Angie Martinez would be great, but Angie Martinez is never going to do the Real Housewives. It's never going to happen. But Amber Sabathia kind of travels in that cool, women who are 40 to 50 and they're still moving and shaking and doing charitable causes. I think Amber Sabathia would be a very, very good choice. Casting should definitely take a look at her. I mean, last year before the season started, people were taking a look at Alicia Quarles. And I believe there was some stuff that had went on with Alicia. So praying for her health and all the stuff. In real life, this is not a casting thing, but I'm just saying there was a time that they were talking with her. That was the rumor. And then in real life, a little bit ago, there was some stuff going on. So just hopefully everything is, at peace in regards to that. I don't have all the information, so I don't want to bring up too much, but I want to just show the love and support. Now, if we're going to go wild card and we want to go a little like, well, Ronnie, we can't just have a show that's top cachet and, everyone's, at the the finest level of life, because it's not going to be an interesting show. Okay, I'll give you a Spitfire. You want a Spitfire? And I never typically think you should bring somebody from another city into New York City, because you run the risk of like not necessarily getting the New York City isms. Even in my 7 years of living there, I feel like I know it a lot, because I mean I was hitting the ground running, but at the same time, you're not a New Yorker till you've been there for 10 years. That's the rule. And I usually would say no, but this woman has been in the industry for so long. Even within one of her jobs, she spent time in New York City. And above that, we've got to witness the career sort of go up and then sort of go down. And she's got stories too, even controversial stories. And not just to be wild, but she just has that amongst things that has happened in her life, professionally. And so bear with me. I really, and I know you might laugh at me, I really think the one and only cast member that we could bring from another city and even arc it that way. I think even when they brought Kenya Moore to Atlanta, it was kind of like that was kind of built in a little bit. Kenya Moore lived in LA all those years. She's coming to Atlanta. You kind of follow that story. Be the only one that I'd say this for, like, a restart for Miss Aubrey O'Day. Now, this does what you would think in terms of, Leah and like, keeping it Spitfire, keeping it edgy, keeping it sex positive, all of those things. But Aubrey, you get the availability to, recount what happened when she was working with Diddy and those tough stories. And even just like, pursuing herself as a pop artist in a girl group and all the, stuff that goes along with that. I just could not say more that I think one of those castings that would be a bit of a surprise to people. Like, no, it can't be Aubrey. I think I really feel like it would be something so abstract that it just may work. But again, the people that I'm thinking are, keep Ebony in there, add Olivia Palermo, add Amber Sabathia. I mean, here's a great choice too. One of Angie Martinez's best friends, though she's younger, is Adrienne Bailon. Adrienne Bailon's just coming off of the Real, as that talk show sort of went away. She's moved back to New York City in Westchester, so it's not like the city, but you're right there. And again, you get a contract that's good, and make sure that she's not messing with the swill, and is a little more elevated of a situation. Adrienne Bailon could make great television. Obviously, she did some Kardashian episodes because she was dating Rob at the time. She also did Empire Girls, which was on the Style Network, which was an offshoot of the E! Channel. She did that with Jaleesa Bermudez. Jaleesa Bermudez was a host on BET's 106 in Park. Their show was called Empire Girls, and it was, I think it was like 8 to 10 episodes, and it was just them navigating, I think at the time, like 30-year-old life. And both of them being like, television hosts and musicians and stuff of that nature. So Adrienne would be really good because Adrienne grew up in the Lower East Side. with, not much. And now she's living in a beautiful mansion in Westchester. To me, maybe it wouldn't work because you almost feel like, why go on Housewives? But there's a lot of people that I think were elevated and went on Housewives and do very well. I thought Garcelle Bouvet was a little above it, and not saying she made a bad choice, but she navigated and kind of maybe had it. I don't know if you could contractually have some, things that you don't want to touch. I don't know if you have that much power, but Adrienne Bailon should definitely be looked at as well. So those are some great people. Amber Sabathia, Adrienne Bailon, as a shock factor, I guess. Aubrey O'Day. I mean, there's so many people you could choose, but the bottom line is you look like a fool. And this is lovingly saying to Bravo and Andy and everybody that we're waiting this long for the show to come back. It's like one of those things where it's like, it makes you look guilty to some degree. Like, it makes you look like you were in on maybe some of the nastiness that Ramona pushed out. And I'm not even calling, because it's not my decision. It's not I would never want to put my word in my platform, whether I got 5 viewers or 5,000 or 5 million. I would never want to like try to take money out of anyone's pockets. And well, Ramona she just had a long run. And I just think when you have a long run and you start kind of the way you started, you just need a break. It's funny as we make the joke about Dorinda, she just needs a pause, really. The antidote for me would be an antidote? What would you call it? The answer with Ramona would be this. We have too many times where we're having a Ramona argument with somebody that's so unlike her lifestyle, like when she never would get along with Leah, that it just becomes a this or that. Are you the apple or are you the orange? What I think is necessary is getting another Ramona type in her circle and seeing just how she treats even her friends. And also because it is production, let's say they hire one of them, was it Missy, one of the gals that's in her huge circle of friends. Get one of those gals, even if remember Elaine, was it Elaine? She was there for a little bit. Was it Elaine? Was that her name? God, I'm forgetting the people. Barbara, Elaine. What was that lady's name? Well, you know who I'm talking about, right? Because she came in through being a friend of Ramona, but Ramona threw her to the curb too. That to me is the only way you have a saving grace with Ramona, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to make it like, well, Ramona's trash because she's this and she thinks all these things that I don't even politically feel, or and she's saying it really nasty and naughty. Not naughty. Whoa. She's not doing that. Where did that come from? I'm ready for Halloween already. No. You just need to have somebody more in her similar lifestyle already, and then let them sort of not see eye to eye. And I think then you really got something going. That way it's not an apples and oranges thing, because if I'm a viewer and I don't like her actions, it doesn't make me more happy to root and rile up for like the person who's more like, similar to my beliefs or whatever like that. Like, Ramona is who she is, but there's a lot of people like that. Who's a great example of something like this? I'm not calling out her. Actually, that's a tangent. I don't want to go on a tangent. I want to end the episode. After saying the word naughty and Ramona in the same sentence, it's time to go. Anyways, bottom line, the critique was not to be mean by any sort. The critique was the same type of critique that you want to do when you yourself are working on something. I'm working on my YouTube channel. I'm working on my podcast. You want to get together with colleagues of a certain stature. You don't want to ask anybody. Don't just ask anybody who doesn't know what they're talking about. But you want to get together with people of a certain stature, and they could say, okay, this is what you messed up on. This is what you need to work on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because I love the Real Housewives of New York, because I've worked in the radio industry, because I've worked on some television production situations as well. America's Got Talent, Married at First Sight. I'm just saying, and as a viewer too, I'm saying what I would like to see and how we could bring this show back and get over this season 13, luck be a lady tonight, unlucky season. You address some of the stuff, first lines out of Ebony, if she gets to come back, hopefully she does, is what that did to her. She always has such a confidence about her. Oh, you know what I also like about Ebony, and this is just not superficial, but bias. She's a Virgo. She has the same birthday as Giselle Bryant. And I love Giselle Bryant, and I'm a Virgo, September 5th. They're September 9th. I mean, we should throw a party. Anyway, I think that, oh my gosh, I lost my train of thought again. This never happens. This means I am certainly tired and certainly ready to end the episode. All right. I want the best for everybody. As I was saying, I think the season should just dip into all of these things. You have control over it because you have the final edit, but address them and then move on. You don't do another season the way that it was done the first time. You just address it, though. Don't act like it didn't happen. I don't see how that's good. You give, hey, this is how I felt. Boom. Luann, this is how I felt. Boy, from the time that we did the show to the time we had a break and came back, these are some of the things I learned. It's not that hard. It's not that hard. But again, wasting all this time makes everybody look like they don't know what they're doing. But anyways, what's happening with the Real Housewives of New York? If you feel like you know the answer, put it in the comments. You could say whatever you need to say. If I said anything that doesn't necessarily make sense, maybe passionately I speak and I, can be open to, some different trains of thought. Aubrey O'Day wouldn't work because of this. Ebony shouldn't come back because of this, which I think she should. Olivia Palermo would never do the show because of this, blank, blank, blank. I'm totally down for like discourse, but we're just having fun in terms of the casting and who should be on the show. And let's start filming it. I mean, what do we need? Do we need to have a man on the show? I'll go be a housewife. I'm ready to come back to New York. You know what I mean? I've lived in Harlem, I've lived in Bushwick, and I've, hit the ground running, pounded the pavement, made very little money because I worked my butt off, but still, when you're on the lower level, Luann, it's so hard to get to the higher level. Maybe they need to do something like that too. They need to bring in somebody who is like, their whole thing is like, let's bring fabulous people who are already winning. Maybe you need to bring in somebody who's at the cusp of something special and let them grow and let it shine and win. And let me tell you, Bethany did do that. Let me also tell you, Leah will never do that. Wherever you get her is where you're getting her. And again, this is not like, me judging on her second season. What's happened second season? No, you morons. She was always boring her first season. It was just the lack of Bethany, the void, and she sort of jumped in and you got a little excited. I did a recap that season and she was not interesting then. She was I was like, what is this? And I was a little more disappointed because I remember her from the podcast Improper Etiquettes with Laura Stiles. I was like, you could do better. You can do better. But choices are going to be choices, right? The one thing I like about Leah, though, is we both love Little Kim. Oh, I love Kimmy. Oh, I just love Little Kim. Put Little Kim on the show. Done. Show's over. Started over. Little Kim in the lead Apple holding position. Started over. That's the show. And keep listening to me because I'm brilliant. I'm kidding. I got to go. I really sincerely thank you for checking out the show. Go to #randomly with Ronnie Jr. in the YouTube. Like, look for it under the video and or type it in, and you'll see not just the 200 videos we have on the podcast platform, but you'll also see all the stuff that I have on the old like YouTube archives from when I was doing radio all those years ago. There's like 200 videos there. So it has been fun. I got to go. Talk to you later.
Hey, Ronnie Jr.